The silver ships appeared on a Tuesday morning, hanging in Earth's sky like metal clouds. They came without warning, without any message of peace or greeting. The Zephyrian Empire had arrived. Commander Velkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. His 3 eyes studied the primitive world with amusement. The intelligence reports were clear. These humans still used chemical rockets and simple radio waves. They fought wars with metal bullets and explosive devices. They would surrender within days. "Begin the demonstration," Velkar ordered his crew. "Show them our power." The first energy beam struck the empty desert outside Las Vegas. Sand turned to glass in seconds. The blast created a crater 2 miles wide. Every government on Earth received the same message afterward: surrender now or face total destruction. Captain Jake Morrison was eating breakfast with his family when the alert came through. His phone buzzed with an emergency code he had never seen before. Within minutes, he was racing toward the airbase, leaving his confused wife and children behind. At Edwards Air Force Base, chaos filled the hangars. Pilots ran to their jets, while ground crews loaded weapons with shaking hands. General Rick Hayes stood in the command center, his face pale as he watched the alien ships on the radar screens. "How many?" Jake asked as he grabbed his flight suit. 50 ships in orbit," Hayes replied. "More coming through some kind of portal near the moon. They want our surrender in 12 hours. Jake pulled on his helmet. "What's our response?" Hayes looked at him with tired eyes. "We fight." The first battle lasted 3 hours. 12 F-22 fighters rose to meet the alien scouts that came down to scan major cities. Jake led the attack, his jet screaming through the sky at maximum speed. The alien craft were fast, but not faster than human jets. They were advanced, but their pilots had never faced opponents who refused to give up. When Jake's missiles struck the first alien ship, it exploded in a ball of green fire. "Target down," Jake shouted into his radio. "These things can be killed." The other pilots cheered and pressed their attacks. Within an hour, 6 alien scouts were burning wreckage scattered across 3 states. But the victory came with a price. 8 human jets were lost to alien energy weapons. Dr. Lisa Harper watched the battle from her office at City. She had spent her whole career hoping for contact with alien life. Now that it had come, she wished it had never happened. The radio. Telescopes were picking up alien communications, and the computer was slowly translating their language. What she heard made her blood run cold. "Primitive species shows unexpected resistance," one alien voice said. "Recommend immediate full-scale assault." "Negative," came the reply. "High Command wants live specimens for study. Reduce their cities to rubble, but leave enough survivors to work the mines." Lisa grabbed her phone and called the Pentagon. She had to warn them that this was just the beginning. On the alien flagship, Velkar was no longer amused. His scouts had reported something impossible. The humans had destroyed 6 Zephyrian craft using primitive weapons. No species had ever shot down Zephyrian ships on first contact. "Scan their military installations," he ordered. "I want to know what other surprises they have." The scans revealed something that made Velkar pause. The humans had thousands of aircraft. They had weapons pointed at the sky from every continent. Most disturbing of all, they were moving their forces into position instead of fleeing in panic. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting massive electromagnetic activity across the planet. They appear to be coordinating a global defense." Velkar had conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. He had faced species with energy shields and plasma cannons, but none of them had ever coordinated their entire planet's military in a single day. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the Pentagon War Room, surrounded by screens showing military units across the globe. Every Navy ship was moving toward strategic positions. Every Army base was going to maximum alert. Every Air Force in the world was preparing for the fight of their lives. "Status report," she called out. "All Allied forces are responding," came the reply from a dozen different officers. "The Russians are moving their fleet. The Chinese are launching their fighters. Even the smallest countries are sending what they have." Kate nodded grimly. In 8 hours, humanity had done something that usually took months of planning. Every nation on Earth was working together against a common enemy. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They thought humans were like other species they had conquered. They expected panic, confusion, and quick surrender. Instead, they found a world that had been preparing for this moment without even knowing it. Every human military had trained for the day when survival meant fighting impossible odds. Every soldier had grown up hearing stories of heroes who never gave up as night fell across Earth. The alien ships began descending from orbit. Vel Kar had decided that a quick, brutal assault would crush human resistance in hours. He was about to learn why every other species in the galaxy feared a race called humans. Jake Morrison sat in his cockpit, waiting for the order to launch. Around him, hundreds of other pilots were doing the same. They all knew the odds. They all knew most of them would not see tomorrow, but not one of them considered backing down. The radio crackled with General Hayes' voice. "All units, this is command. The enemy is coming. Remember, we're not just fighting for our countries today. We're fighting for our species. Make every shot count." Jake smiled grimly and started his engines. The real war was about to begin. The real invasion began at dawn on Wednesday. Zephyrian ships descended like a metal storm, their energy weapons turning entire city blocks into ash. But something was wrong. The humans were not running in panic as expected. Colonel Sam Davis crouched behind the ruins of a gas station, watching alien troops march down what used to be Main Street. These creatures were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They carried weapons that could melt steel with a single shot. But Sam noticed something important. They moved in perfect formations, like soldiers on parade. They had never fought an enemy that hid and struck from shadows. "Team Alpha, take position," Sam whispered into his radio. "Wait for my signal." Around him, 30 soldiers waited in the rubble. They were ordinary men and women from a dozen different countries, but they all had one thing in common. They refused to give up their planet without a fight. The aliens walked closer, their sensors scanning for human life signs. They found nothing. The humans had learned to hide their heat signatures using simple techniques that any hunter knew. "Now," Sam whispered, "the ambush was perfect." 30 rifles opened fire at once. The alien formation collapsed in seconds. Their advanced armor could stop energy weapons, but simple lead bullets punched right through. Within minutes, the human soldiers had vanished back into the ruins, leaving only alien bodies behind. This scene was playing out in 100 cities around the world. The Zephyrians had expected to fight organized armies on open battlefields. Instead, they found enemies who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Dr. Ben Carter worked frantically in his underground laboratory. 3 days ago, he had been designing better car engines. Now he was trying to save his species. On his workbench lay pieces of alien technology recovered from the crashed scouts. The metal was unlike anything on Earth, but it followed the same basic laws of physics. The energy weapons used a simple focusing crystal that amplified electrical current. "It's brilliant," he muttered to himself, "but it's not magic." Within hours, Ben had figured out how to jam the alien weapons using modified police radar guns. More importantly, he had learned how to build human versions of their energy rifles. The plans were immediately sent to every factory in the world. Commander Amy Walsh dove her submarine beneath the Arctic ice, hunting for alien ships. The creatures had assumed that Earth's oceans were empty of threats. They were wrong. Her sonar detected the alien craft hovering just above the water, scanning for human naval forces. The aliens had excellent sensors, but they were designed to work in space, not underwater. Fire torpedoes, Amy ordered quietly. 2 nuclear-tipped torpedoes streaked upward through the water. The alien ship never saw them coming. The explosion lit up the Arctic sky like a second sun. Target destroyed, Amy reported to Fleet Command, moving to intercept the next group. All over Earth's oceans, human submarines were turning the seas into a graveyard for alien ships. Chief Engineer Mike Torres stood in what used to be a car factory. In just 2 days, the assembly line had been completely rebuilt. Instead of making vehicles, it now produced ammunition and weapons around the clock. Every factory in the world was doing the same thing. Car plants made bullets. Electronics companies built targeting systems. Even toy factories were producing parts for military equipment. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Most species took months to convert their industry for war. Humans had done it in less than a week. Production report. Mike called out to his supervisors. We're at 300% normal capacity, came the reply. The workers are staying on double shifts without being asked. Mike nodded. Nobody had to force humans to work 18-hour days to save their planet. They did it because the alternative was slavery or death. On his flagship, Velkar stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. In 5 days of fighting, he had lost more ships than in his previous 10 campaigns combined. How is this possible? He demanded from his intelligence officer. The humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered, the officer replied. Nervously, they ignore civilian casualties. They sacrifice entire cities to destroy single ships. They attack from positions that should be impossible to defend. Velkar studied the tactical displays. Human forces were not trying to protect their cities or save their people. They were trying to kill as many Zephyrians as possible, regardless of the cost. Sir, another officer reported, we're detecting massive energy signatures from their underground facilities. They appear to be building something. What kind of something? Unknown, sir, but the power requirements suggest weapons of mass destruction. Velkar felt a chill run through his body. Most species surrendered when faced with superior technology. Humans were escalating. Jake Morrison climbed out of his damaged fighter jet, his body aching from the crash landing. He had shot down 3 alien ships before his engines failed, but his mission was not over. In his backpack were the remains of an alien communication device. Dr. Harper had asked all pilots to bring back any alien technology they could find. She was trying to break their military codes. Jake started walking toward the extraction point, 15 miles through enemy territory. Around him, the city burned from alien attacks. But in the distance, he could see human aircraft still fighting. There. War was far from over. Dr. Lisa Harper worked day and night in her makeshift laboratory, surrounded by alien equipment and computer screens. She had successfully translated most of the Zephyrian language, and what she learned terrified her. The Zephyrians were not just invaders. They were part of a galactic empire that had conquered dozens of worlds. Earth was supposed to be an easy target, a stepping stone to further expansion, but the aliens were starting to panic. Their communications were filled with requests for reinforcements and complaints about human tactics. These creatures fight without honor, one message said. They use their own civilians as shields. They destroy their own cities to deny us resources. How can we conquer a species that cares nothing for survival? Lisa smiled grimly as she translated. The aliens did not understand humans at all. They thought caring nothing for survival made humans weak. They were about to learn it made humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. General Hayes stood in his command bunker, looking at maps covered with red marks showing alien positions. Each mark represented thousands of enemy troops and dozens of ships out, but the maps also showed something else. Blue marks indicating human resistance forces. There were 3 times as many blue marks as red ones. Status report, Hayes called out. Global. Resistance is at maximum capacity, his aide replied. Every continent is reporting successful operations. The aliens control major cities, but humans control everything else. Hayes nodded. The Zephyrians had made a classic mistake. They had focused on conquering territory instead of destroying the enemy's ability to fight. Now they were learning that humans could fight. From anywhere. As the sun set on the 5th day of the invasion, Velkar made a decision that would change everything. He opened communications with the Zephyrian High Command. Request immediate reinforcements, he transmitted. This species is not surrendering. Recommend full battle fleet deployment. The reply came back within hours. Reinforcements approved. The entire 3rd Battle Fleet is en route. Velkar should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt afraid. Something told him that bringing more ships would only make the humans fight harder. He was right. The 3rd Battle Fleet arrived on Friday morning, 200 warships strong. It was the largest military force the Zephyrian Empire had ever sent against a single planet. Velkar felt confident that the humans would finally surrender when they saw the size of the armada. He was wrong. Dr. Alex Stone worked in a sealed laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him were samples of alien blood, tissue, and technology. He had been given one simple order: find a way to kill them faster. What Alex discovered made him pause. The Zephyrians had immune systems that were incredibly advanced, but they had one weakness. They had never encountered Earth bacteria. Biological warfare, he whispered to himself. They have no resistance to our diseases. Within hours, Alex had created a virus that would be harmless to humans, but deadly to Zephyrians. It could be spread through air, water, or direct contact. Most importantly, it worked fast. The ethical part of his mind screamed that this was wrong. The practical part reminded him that the aliens were trying to enslave his entire species. He chose practicality. Captain Maria Rodriguez led her team through the alien-occupied zone outside Chicago. They moved at night, using sewers and subway tunnels to avoid detection. Their mission was simple: plant biological weapons in the alien water supply. Maria had been a police officer before the invasion. She had spent her career protecting innocent people. Now she was about to commit an act that would have horrified her a week ago. But the aliens had made it clear they intended to kill or enslave every human on Earth. Maria's conscience could live with genocide if it meant her species survived. Target. Building ahead, she whispered to her team. Remember, we go in fast and quiet. Plant the devices and get out. The alien water treatment facility was lightly guarded. The Zephyrians had never faced sabotage before. They expected enemies to attack. Military targets, not infrastructure. Maria's team was inside and out in 10 minutes. Behind them, they left 12 small devices that would release Alex's virus into the alien drinking water. By morning, every Zephyrian in the city would be infected. Agent John Blake sat in a chair across from the captured alien officer. The creature was badly wounded and barely conscious, but John needed information. Tell me about your home world, John said calmly. The alien looked at him with hatred. I will tell you nothing, primitive creature. John smiled without warmth. You will. We have ways of making anyone talk. What followed would have been considered torture by every human rights organization on Earth. But Earth no longer had the luxury of human rights. They had survival. John had learned the techniques from military interrogators who had studied the most brutal regimes in human history. He used psychological pressure, sensory deprivation, and carefully applied pain to break the aliens' will. It took 6 hours. When it was over, John knew the location of 3 Zephyrian military bases, the names of their commanding officers, and the specifications of their most advanced weapons. He also knew something else. The Zephyrians were terrified of what humans might do if they lost the war. They were right to be afraid. Lieutenant Colonel Nina Brooks broadcast the message on every frequency the aliens used. Her voice was calm and professional, like a news reporter giving the weather forecast. Attention Zephyrian forces. This is a message from the human resistance. Your water supplies have been contaminated with a biological agent. The disease will kill 90% of your troops within 72 hours. The only cure is immediate evacuation from Earth. The message was a lie. The virus was not that deadly, and there was no cure needed because humans were naturally immune. But the aliens did not know that. Within hours, panic spread through the Zephyrian ranks. Soldiers began showing symptoms that were mostly psychological, but felt completely real. Medical officers reported that troops were dying from what appeared to be an unknown plague. The truth was that most of the dying aliens were simply terrified. Fear, Nina had learned, was humanity's most effective weapon. Commander Velkar stood in his medical bay, looking at the reports from his ground forces. 30% of his troops were sick or dead. The human biological weapon was spreading faster than his doctors could treat it. Sir, his medical officer reported, we cannot stay on this planet. The contamination is too widespread. Velkar wanted to retreat, but High Command had been clear. Failure was not acceptable. The Zephyrian Empire had never lost a war. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. If we cannot occupy the planet, we will destroy it. His weapons officer hesitated. Sir, that will kill millions of humans. High Command wanted survivors for slave labor. High Command wanted a victory, Velkar replied coldly. Now they will have to settle for revenge. The first energy beams struck major cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow were reduced to burning craters in minutes. 10 million humans died in the first hour of the bombardment. But something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, the human resistance became more determined. General Hayes watched the destruction from his underground command center. His face showed no emotion as city after city disappeared from the tactical display. Sir, his aide said quietly, should we open surrender negotiations? Hayes looked at him with steel in his eyes. No. Begin Protocol 7. The aide turned pale. Sir, Protocol 7 means I know what it means, Hayes interrupted. Do it. Protocol 7 had been developed during the Cold War as humanity's final option in case of global nuclear war. It was a plan so terrible that only 12 people on Earth knew its full details. Now it would be used against an alien enemy. Jake Morrison flew his fighter through the burning ruins of what used to be Paris. The city was gone, but the alien ships responsible were still in the area. His jet carried a new type of weapon, something the engineers had built using captured alien technology. Instead of explosives, it carried a virus bomb designed to spread Alex's biological weapon through the air. Jake did not think about the ethics of biological warfare. He thought about his wife and children, hiding in an underground shelter somewhere. He thought about the millions of humans who had died in the orbital bombardment. He thought about revenge. Target acquired, he reported into his radio. Beginning attack run. His missile struck the alien ship's air intake system. Within minutes, every creature aboard would be infected with a disease that would kill them in agony. Jake felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. There were still hundreds of alien ships to destroy. Dr. Lisa Harper intercepted the alien communications as they tried to contact their home world. What she heard made her smile for the first time in days. Request immediate evacuation, the alien commander was saying. This species is not normal. They use weapons that violate all galactic conventions. They show no mercy to prisoners. They sacrifice their own civilians to achieve military objectives. The reply from the alien homeworld was sharp. You have 200 ships. They have primitive technology. Complete your mission. You do not understand, came the desperate response. These humans are not like other species. They do not surrender. When defeated, they become more dangerous. We cannot win this war without destroying the entire planet. Lisa recorded every word. Someday, when this was over, she wanted proof of what humanity had accomplished. They had made an entire galactic empire afraid of a single primitive world dot as night fell on the 10th day of the invasion. Both sides prepared for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The aliens were ready to destroy Earth completely rather than admit defeat. The humans were ready to make them pay a price that would terrify the galaxy for 1,000 years. In hidden bunkers around the world, humans activated weapons that had been built in secret for decades. These were not conventional weapons. They were devices designed to kill everything on Earth, including humans, rather than let the planet fall to invaders. The aliens thought they understood warfare. They were about to learn that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of mutually assured destruction. The real war was about to begin. Protocol 7 began at midnight on Sunday. Around the world, humans activated weapons that had been hidden for 50 years, waiting for this exact moment. Admiral Tony Mitchell stood on the bridge of the spaceship that officially did not exist. The vessel had been built in secret, deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid. For 30 years, it had waited in the darkness beyond Pluto. Now it was time to hunt. All systems ready, Admiral, his weapons officer reported. Tony looked at the tactical display showing alien ships scattered throughout the solar system. The enemy thought they controlled space around Earth. They were about to learn that humans had been preparing for interstellar war since the 1960s. Target the command ship, Tony ordered. Fire all weapons. The human ship appeared on Zephyrian sensors for exactly 3 seconds before its missiles struck Velkar's flagship. The alien commander died without ever knowing what had killed him. Within minutes, 12 more human ships decloaked around the solar system. They had been hiding in the asteroid belt, behind moons, and in the shadow of planets. Each one carried weapons powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. The Zephyrians suddenly realized they were not the hunters. They were the prey. Captain Emma Johnson led her team to the alien base on Mars. The enemy had established a supply depot on the Red Planet, thinking it was safely behind their lines. They were wrong. Emma's soldiers moved through the facility like ghosts, killing alien guards without making a sound. These were not ordinary soldiers. They had been trained in zero-gravity combat for decades, preparing for the day when humans might need to fight in space. Charges set, her demolitions expert whispered. Emma nodded. Everyone out, 30 seconds. The explosion destroyed the entire base, and 6 alien ships docked at the facility. More importantly, it sent a message to every Zephyrian in the solar system. Nowhere was safe from human attack. Dr. Paul Anderson worked frantically in his laboratory aboard the secret moon base. Around him were pieces of advanced alien technology, equipment so sophisticated that it seemed like magic. But Paul had spent his career studying alien signals from deep space. He understood their science better than they realized. Got it, he whispered as he activated the device he had built. Across the solar system, every Zephyrian ship suddenly lost all communication with their home world. Paul had created a jamming field that blocked their faster-than-light communications. The aliens were now cut off from reinforcements, trapped in a solar system with an enemy that refused to die. Major Claire Evans led the assault on the alien mining operation in the asteroid belt. Her soldiers wore powered armor that let them move and fight in the vacuum of space that the aliens had never faced infantry in zero gravity. Their weapons were designed for fighting on planets, not in the endless void between worlds. Claire's team struck the mining station from 6 different directions at once. Within an hour, they had captured the facility and taken 50 alien prisoners. Claire was not interested in prisoners. She was interested in information. Strip their communications equipment, she ordered her soldiers. I want to know where their other bases are. The interrogation techniques that humans used in space were even more brutal than those used on Earth. In the vacuum of space, there were no rules about what was acceptable. The aliens told them everything. On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Admiral Zextan stared at the reports from Earth with growing horror. In 2 weeks, the humans had destroyed half of the Third Battle Fleet and captured or eliminated every alien base in their solar system. How is this possible? He demanded from his intelligence staff. The species appears to have been preparing for interstellar war for decades, his advisor replied nervously. They have weapons and ships that our scouts never detected. Zextan studied the tactical reports. The humans were not just defending their planet anymore. They were actively hunting Zephyrian forces throughout their star system. Sir, another officer reported, were receiving distress signals from mining operations in 3 nearby systems. The humans appear to have left their home system. Zextan felt his blood turn cold. Humans had achieved interstellar travel and were using it to attack Zephyrian territories. Recall all ships to home defense, he ordered, and send the message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we may need assistance. For the first time in Zephyrian history, they were asking for help. Jake Morrison flew his fighter through the ruins of the alien fleet near Jupiter. Around him, the wreckage of 200 enemy ships drifted in the darkness. The battle had lasted 18 hours. When it was over, not a single Zephyrian vessel remained operational in the outer solar system. All targets destroyed, Jake reported. To Fleet Command, moving to rendezvous point. But Jake's mission was not over. Hidden in his fighter's cargo bay was a device that would change everything. It was a beacon that would guide human ships to the Zephyrian home world. The war was about to leave the solar system. Commander Amy Walsh surfaced her submarine in Earth's Pacific Ocean and opened the sealed orders that had been waiting for this moment. Operation Deep Strike is authorized, the message read. Proceed to coordinates and await further instructions. Amy's submarine was not what it appeared to be. Hidden beneath its conventional hull was an experimental faster-than-light drive, built using captured alien technology. She was about to become the first human to attack an alien. Home world. Dr. Lisa Harper decoded the latest alien communications with growing satisfaction. The messages were filled with panic and desperation. The humans have broken containment, one message said. They are operating beyond their home system. Request emergency reinforcements from the core worlds. Another transmission was even more revealing. These creatures do not fight like any species we have encountered. They show no mercy. They take no prisoners unless they need information. They appear to consider this a war of extinction. Lisa smiled grimly. The aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had started. Humans did not fight wars to gain territory or resources. They fought wars to eliminate threats. Completely. General Hayes stood in his command center, looking at a star map. That showed human forces spreading throughout local space. Red markers indicated successful attacks on alien installations. Blue markers showed human ships moving toward enemy territories. Status report, he called out. Operation Deep Strike is proceeding as planned, his aide replied. We have confirmed human forces in 17 star systems. All alien installations in local space have been neutralized. Hayes nodded. The first phase of the counterattack was complete. Now came the dangerous part. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "Target the Zephyrian home world." On distant worlds throughout the local galaxy, other alien species monitored the war between humans and Zephyrians with growing alarm. The Altarian Council called an emergency session to discuss the human problem. The Centauri Federation began moving their fleets away from human space. The Vegan Empire started building defensive installations around their home worlds. None of them had ever seen a species wage war the way humans did. Most civilized races fought limited conflicts over resources or territory. They followed rules about civilian casualties and prisoner treatment. Humans followed no rules except victory. Ambassador Kree Tau of the Galactic Council received the Zephyrian request for assistance with deep concern. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful military forces in known space. If they were asking for help against a primitive world, something was very wrong. "Send observers to the human system," he ordered his staff. "I want to know what we are dealing with." The observers never returned. As the third week of the war began, Captain Emma Johnson stood on the bridge of a captured Zephyrian warship. Engineers had spent days learning to operate the alien vessel, but now it was ready for its new mission. "Set course for the Zephyrian home world," she ordered. Around her, a dozen other captured ships prepared for the same journey. They carried human crews and human weapons, but they looked like Zephyrian vessels on long-range sensors. The aliens would never see them coming until it was too late. Dr. Paul Anderson activated his latest creation, a device that would broadcast a message to every inhabited world in the local galaxy. The message was simple and direct. This is humanity. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Any species that supports the Zephyrian Empire will be considered an enemy. Any species that remains neutral will be left alone. Any species that assists us will be protected. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We want only one thing, to ensure that no alien species ever again threatens Earth or humanity. Choose wisely." The message reached 47 different civilizations within hours. By the end of the day, 12 species had officially declared neutrality in the human-Zephyrian conflict. 3 species offered to provide intelligence on Zephyrian military installations. The galaxy was beginning to choose sides, and most of them were choosing humanity. On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Admiral Zextan received reports that made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. Human ships had appeared in 16 different star systems simultaneously. They were attacking with coordination that suggested a level of strategic planning that took years to develop. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we believe the humans have been preparing for galactic war for decades. This invasion appears to have been exactly what they were waiting for." Zextan stared at the tactical displays in horror. The humans had not just survived the invasion. They had used it as an excuse to begin their own conquest of local space. The Zephyrian Empire had awakened something terrible. Now it was too late to put it back to sleep. The Zephyrian homeworld burned. Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper watched from his command ship as human missiles struck the alien capital city. Each explosion sent towers of fire reaching toward the sky, destroying thousands of years of Zephyrian civilization. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "all military targets have been neutralized. The planet's defense grid is down." Dan nodded grimly. "Begin the occupation." 20 human ships descended through the alien atmosphere, carrying troops who had trained for this moment their entire lives. These soldiers had grown up knowing that someday humanity might need to conquer other worlds to survive. That day had come. President Helen Wright stood before the emergency session of the United Nations. But she was not speaking to Earth's leaders. She was addressing representatives from 47 alien species who had gathered to witness humanity's response to the Zephyrian invasion. "The war is over," she announced calmly. The Zephyrian Empire has surrendered unconditionally. Their military has been destroyed. Their home world is under human occupation. The alien ambassadors shifted nervously in their seats. None of them had expected the primitive humans to not only survive the invasion, but to completely destroy one of the galaxy's most powerful empires in less than a month. However, Helen continued, humanity has learned valuable lessons from this conflict. We have learned that the galaxy is full of species who view us as potential slaves or resources to be harvested. She paused, letting her words sink in. This will never happen again. Ambassador Susan Mills walked through the ruins of the Zephyrian capital, her boots crunching on broken glass and debris. Around her, alien civilians watched with fear and hatred as human soldiers patrolled the streets. Susan had been Earth's first ambassador to an alien species. Now she was its first colonial administrator. Status report, she called to General Chris Parker, who commanded the occupation forces. All organized resistance has ended, Chris replied. The population is cooperating. Most of them seem relieved that we're not killing civilians. Susan nodded. That had been a deliberate choice. Humans had learned that fear was more effective than genocide. What about their military archives? Fully captured, Chris said with satisfaction. We now have detailed information on every species in this sector of the galaxy, including their military capabilities and resource locations. Susan smiled. The Zephyrians had done humanity an enormous favor.